All righty, we are recording. All righty, man. So, John Beckloff with the Project Tribute Foundation, and I've got Jared Gorman with me. Sorry about that. And Jared is a paramedic over with Bartlesville Ambulance, and he's also now one of our board members with the foundation. So we've all been kind of talking about the idea of trying to do some kind of podcast or video. And so Jared wanted to be the first, and then I've got Justin Miller wanting to do it as well, another one of our board members. But Jared, as you can tell, he's on shift right now, so there's going to be lots of noises, and he may have to go. You'll hear radio calls and all that stuff. So, Jared, you and I have talked a lot. We've talked a lot over your work history as we've gotten to know each other, and you've been very interested in the board. So, tell me. Let's just start with the basics. Tell me about you, your kind of your training history, degrees, certifications, whatever, anything related to the job, and then where have you worked?
Sure. Well, first off, I'm from Independence, Kansas, so that's kind of where I grew up. I've got a bachelor's from KU in pre-med. I originally wanted to go to physical therapy school. Started volunteering when I was kind of in my senior year at KU, and volunteer firefighter. So that's kind of where I got my start with that. It was something that I enjoyed doing, and I felt like it was something I could do for the rest of my life. And I ended up getting most of my certifications actually paid for through the departments that I've worked for. I've had every EMS certification that you could take. So there's different levels of EMT for those of you that don't know the different levels. So there's EMT basic. There's now an advanced EMT. It used to be an EMT intermediate, this is what I had. And then there's a EMT paramedic, which is what I have now. So, there's different schooling involved with each one, a little bit longer. Paramedic is about 18 months, give or take, for most programs. I got my paramedic when I was working on the Lawrence, Kansas Fire and Medical Department. Went to Kansas City, Kansas Community College to get my paramedic. And I've had that for a little over 5 years. I've had my paramedic, but I've been in fire EMS for a little over 14 years now at this point. So
nice. Wow. Okay. So Kansas, and then now Oklahoma. Have you done firefighting in Oklahoma?
So I've kind of bounced around quite a bit. So when I graduated from KU, I left Lawrence and came down here and down to Bartlesville and worked for the local hospital in the ER, just to kind of continue my experience with that. And it's kind of the ER and pre-hospital EMS is pretty similar. So it was just another way for me to get experience, and it was a good learning, a good job for me to learn with. And at the same time, I got hired on the Bartlesville Fire Department, was on there for about 3 years, and then I got a job opportunity back in Lawrence, working for the Lawrence Fire Medical Department. So that's where I then went after I got on Bartlesville. So, and then coincidentally moved back down here and now work for a private ambulance company, Bartlesville EMS. It's a private owned ambulance company. But
okay. So, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time with on the police side of first responders, and the fire and EMS is somewhat unknown. You and I spent a lot of time over the past couple of weeks. And one of the things last night we actually, you invited us over to watch the live flight. Now, what was happening? Because that was just training, but who were you training, and tell us about that role?
Sure. So, I just recently, so this last class, got to be a part of Tri-County Community College. We have an EMT and a paramedic program. I, along with one of our other paramedics that works here in Bartlesville, kind of co-teach the EMT program. So it's an EMT basic program at Tri-County, and one of the things that we teach them, is fire and EMS, especially in rural communities. We have to involve different agencies, and helicopter services are one of those agencies that we might require. If we have a large accident on a a road that's way out in the county, or if we have multiple patients that are critical that need to go to a trauma center that's not here locally, then we're going to use a helicopter service that just kind of speed that process up. They've got advanced protocols, and they're able to take those patients and get them there a lot faster than we could by a ground ambulance. So we brought them in just to kind of get them familiar with what flight services do, and it's quite a bit different than an ambulance rolling up on scene, but there's a lot more that goes into it. It's pretty dangerous, so we want to get them familiar with doing that stuff so everybody can stay safe, and we can utilize them to the best of their ability and know when to call them and kind of what their capabilities are. So
yeah, it was funny seeing them, because there's you all with the ambulance and then the life flight folks, and they were definitely walking like the Navy SEALs of the field. I mean,
yeah.
They were the A game,
Yep.
The apex predators on the field that day.
No, they're kind of the top dogs for a lot of the stuff. We've looked up to them for a long time. I've looked up to them since I first started. I saw a flight paramedic when I first started doing fire and EMS, and I was like, oh, I want to do that someday. So that's kind of one of my dream jobs, but we'll see if that happens at some point soon. So
sure. Yeah, it's impressive how coordinated. I mean, even just for that helicopter, I name one of the wrecks that's happened over by Atwoods, but the last one that I remember, you had Washington County Emergency Management, you had Bartlesville Police, you had Washington County Sheriffs, and then you had Bartlesville Fire, and then Bartlesville EMS, and all of that to secure the accident to allow life flight to then land, scoop up the person and get him out.
Sure.
So it's impressive how coordinated everybody is. But if a big disaster happens, it's everybody showing up.
Sure. That's one of the things that I love about. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
One of the things I love about the EMS, fire EMS, is that we get to work with so many different agencies, so many different we've got fire, we've got EMS, and then within that you've got all of your volunteer departments that are so. Mm-hmm. I'll back up a little bit. So Bartlesville Ambulance, our territory is basically Washington County, and then we have small little areas in different outlying counties, but that's a pretty large area. So here in the city limits, we deal with Bartlesville Fire, which is a city-ran department here, within the city limits. But we go to, let's say we go to Ramona, we deal with the Ramona Fire Department. We go to, Nowata, we go to Copan. So we get to deal with a lot of different people. And then,
wow. Okay. Yeah, that's impressive because I've always pictured you guys just trying. Bartlesville has 4 or 5 fire stations.
Yeah, they got 4 here in town. So
yeah, so then I was just picturing you're learning the 4 plus all the officers, but instead you're doing that times. I think our county's got 7 towns in the county. Wow. So
it's a large area.
Really, yeah, that's. You're doing the same area as the deputies. And it's
right.
Because how many trucks you guys have? Is it 4?
Well, so we have 4 trucks on some days. So we've kind of figured out what days have a higher call volume. So we have 4 trucks 2 days a week, basically, and then we have 3 trucks that run the rest of the days. So and you got to think too. We add, we do a lot of interfacility hospital to hospital transfers. So Jane Phillips, is not a trauma center. So if we have something that's a significant injury or illness, even if they go to Jane Phillips first, we're going to end up probably taking them to, let's say, St. John's or Hillcrest or some of those trauma centers that are over in Tulsa. So we could have 1 truck in, let's say, Copan, 1 truck on the way to Tulsa, and then we've got 1 truck here in town that is kind of covering the whole town. Now we have to leave a truck in town at all times. That's kind of one of our deals in the contract, but
sure.
It gets pretty hectic sometimes.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I've noticed is, and it's the same with police and fire, that every call is incredibly different. You're dealing with a gentleman that is overdosing, and the police had to get called just to help get them into the ambulance. To, hey, we just need somebody moved from this nursing home to their doctor's appointment. To, hey, we need a lift assist. This person ran out of oxygen, and then COVID calls. It is impressive. I mean, you're literally going from somebody just fainted to somebody died. I mean, it is. How do you prepare? I mean, because I was with you the other day, and you guys had two different calls. That one sounded incredibly scary, and one sounded like nothing, and the roles reversed when you guys got there.
Right.
How do you mentally prepare for that when you're coming on scene?
Well, I mean, I guess first of all, that's why I love this job. You know, no day is the same. You know, like you said, we could be doing, you know, something as simple as, you know, taking somebody from a nursing home to a doctor's appointment or some sort of treatment, and then we could go from the hospital and run, you know, cardiac arrest or, you know, vehicle accident. Part of, you know, the training aspect of that, you know, first off, you know, there's, like I said, you know, just being a paramedic, and that's 18 months of schooling. Now, that's not going to prepare you at all for what you're going to see in the field. But one of the other things that is involved, especially with fire and EMS, and I'm sure, you know, PD as well. I just am not, you know, as familiar with PD because I've never been one. So, you know, we've got a pretty good brotherhood within this, you know, first responder community that, you know, we have a bad call, you know, we're going to come back here and, you know, talk about it and, you know, figure out, you know, what we could do better the next time. Or if we just want to come back and just kind of unload on each other and just kind of, you know, tell each other how we think it went, or, you know, whatever, we kind of vent to each other. And that's kind of how we, a lot of times deal with, you know, what we've just seen or been through. And, but it can take a pretty good toll on you emotionally, physically. And then you add in, you know, the lack of sleep, you know, that comes with the territory. But
Yeah, I mean, like today, for example, you and we've been talking since probably 4 o'clock, and you know, and this was kind of a spur of the moment. I mean, I sent Justin a text at you know,
sure.
noon and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this," and then sent you a text and same kind of the same thing. And I was like, "Hey, let's just do it." But it's impressive. I mean, because you're doing that rotation, you've been running on a call, you know, probably what, a call an hour, if not more than that.
Pretty close to. I don't know what number we're up to right now, but it's been a busy day today. Yeah, it's been, you know, like I said, when you get a chance to eat and when, you know, a chance to go to the bathroom, you take it, because, you know, you never know when, you know,
Yeah.
you could get called out, or you take those times to do what you need to do. And
Yeah, no, and you know, we kind of gonna take a left and then we'll come back to where you were going. You know, one of the things that civilian wise we don't understand just from the ambulance side of things. I mean, you're there for anything from to keep them alive, to get them to the hospital, to just a hey, this elderly person just needs a ride. I mean, it's you know, and with that, because of you guys get hardened. It's probably the better way to put it, and so it is intimidating as a civilian to walk up to you guys and say thank you. I mean, I can't tell you how many times before I started doing this that I wanted to go and just say, hey, thank you. But I also didn't want to disturb whatever, you know, I don't know what you've been dealing with today. You may be getting that first cup of coffee after a 24-hour shift, and I don't want to interrupt that first sip. So if you were, you know, to advise a general civilian that's watching this, that's on our foundation because they support first responders and they want to just show their appreciation, what are the things that have happened to you, the simple things or the extravagant? What are the ones that stood out to you the most?
well, I mean, I don't, you know, I kind of get the, you know, the intimidation a little bit, I guess. You know, we're in uniform, you know, we kind of stand out. You know, a lot of people know what we do to an extent. But I'll say that, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, we could be at the grocery store shopping for, you know, to cook dinner for that night. We are always going to welcome anybody that comes and thanks us. You know, we have, you know, inevitably we get discounts at certain places. You know, we never ask for those discounts, but, you know, if we're in uniform, you know, a lot of people give us, you know, a free drink or whatever. You know, we don't ever ask for that. But, you know, at a very base and simple level, I mean, we're here for the community. So it's nice to hear from them, you know, whether it's a thank you or, you know, hey, we saw you driving down, you know, the highway, you know, just wanted to thank you guys for what you do, or whatever. I mean, we're always going to appreciate that.
Sure.
I don't, there's no real need to feel, intimidated. We're just, normal, normal people. We're normal people on our days off. We wear the same clothes you do on the days off. These are just kind of what we have to wear when we do our job. But
now, I have it on recording that you said you're normal. Like, just
well,
throwing that out.
Normal. But
yeah, okay, there we go. That justifies it all. Laura, if you're watching, I'm sorry. But so, is there anything that you would say don't do? Has there? You have the wackadoos that are out there, but is there things that are just off-putting? You've got the standard. You see a soldier at out and about. Hey, have you ever killed someone? Obviously, there's things you don't ask. What are things that you have seen more than just the one-offs that, man, I wish people would just not do that?
Well, and I've told, a lot of my friends, close friends, ask me, certain things. And I kind of preface a lot of the, like, we get called to go talk to, LPN, CNA, all those kind of classes, that could be involved with, emergency medicine in some way, or healthcare, I guess, in general. I kind of like to start with, especially when it comes to, fire, EMS, and PD. A lot of people want to ask, the first thing is, what's the worst thing you've seen, or what's the craziest thing you've seen? Right. I will kind of tell them as openly as I can. By asking us that question, you probably don't want to hear the worst thing you've ever seen. We see a lot of stuff that people shouldn't ever see. Right. And we see it multiple times, and some of that stuff can be very traumatic to the person doing it. We have to keep our faces on those calls and do our job. But after it's all over, we don't, we see that stuff, randomly pop through our head, and it's not something that A, we want to talk about most likely, and B, you probably don't want to hear it. So if you do ask it, we're going to be nice about it. We'll probably make up some story, to, make you go, oh, that's crazy or whatever. But
I think that's a good point, though, that you're, at the end of the day, you're going to give a answer that's the politically correct, but then in that moment of silence, when you go back to the bay or whatever, you're going to see it and relive it. How do you guys cope with that? Like in your department, I've seen it, you guys sit in the kitchen area and you guys are, hey, let's talk about that call, or you're razzing each other about, hey, why did you do it that way? Or, hey, we broke the drawer, those kind of things. But genuinely, how do you know when, hey, that was a tough call, let's go talk about it, or hey, let's just go sit outside and just sit in silence? Is it just the vibe that you guys put off? You know each other because you're family. How do you cope with that?
There's a lot of different ways, and I can't give you the textbook answer of, this is how you're going to deal with something like that. Everybody's a little different. Everybody's got their own way of dealing with stuff. We try to talk as openly and as often as we can with each other to, make sure that everybody's doing good. And, we get to know each other pretty intimately. I've been here with the same partner. I'm on a 48-hour shift right now. So you're talking day, night, meals, waking up at 2 a.m, and we have to, work very closely with each other to perform a duty. We get called to somebody's house for, potentially the worst day of their life. And, we can't show that we're exhausted. We can't, let our emotions get the best of us, which sometimes it does. It's inevitable. We're all human. But, we try to get what we need to get done. And then afterwards, and it's kind of a dopamine dump, as they would say, get that bit, big adrenaline rush on the call. And then afterwards, you're exhausted. And that's when all those kind of emotions kind of start flooding in. But we, a lot of times, if you've either known a first responder, dated a first responder, are friends with a first responder, most of them, I would say, not all of them, most of them have a pretty, I'll say, for lack of a better term, a sixth sense of humor. And we kind of have to approach a lot of that stuff that way. It's just, it's a way to deal with the stuff. We find humor and stuff that you probably, most of the general population wouldn't find humorous. We see a lot of gross things. We have our words that we say that, our healthcare words that, kind of put a smile. It's something to put a smile on your face and maybe take, for a moment, take your mind off of whatever might be on your mind. But I've always tried myself, if I see somebody struggling, I'm going to at least ask them, I'm not going to, force somebody to talk to me if they don't want to, but hopefully they've got a good support system at home. They've got good friends. But the best people are the people that are sitting next to you in that, the ambulance or fire truck or police car or whatever, because they've been there. They kind of know what you're dealing with. But yeah, there's all sorts of ways to deal with it.
I think that one of the things that you and I have talked about, and I hate to bring it up again just because you and I have talked about it, but our viewers, and so in Lawrence, you recognized, or not just you, but it was recognized that what I don't think people understand, that everyone has heard the 22 a day and they think military. The statistics, and I haven't seen the most up to date, but it's the same for police and fire. There was a recent female firefighter that she took her life at the station, and her partners found her. And so that is a very real threat to our first responders right now. It's suicide and COVID. Those are the two things that we are losing, damn near one a day. So you tell us about what happened, what Lawrence did to, and you can dive into the why if you want to. Don't feel obligated, but
sure.
Just kind of talk through that.
Well, so kind of like you said, and I haven't looked at any of the recent numbers either, so I apologize. But the last I had kind of kept up on it, and this was a couple years ago, for 4 or 5 years running, at least in fire and EMS, there were more firefighters, paramedics, EMTs that died by suicide than in the line of duty, which is a horrible statistic. It shouldn't be, even when I first started, it's, what you got yourself into, kind of suck it up and do your job. And we weren't ever really taught how to deal with what we are about to see. Inevitably, if you're in this career for a number of years, you're going to see stuff that nobody can deal with on their own. And, we had, so I won't go into too many crazy details, but we had 2 of our employees that were pretty high up and had been in this for a long time that had ended up taking their life. And that's when we kind of realized, you always think, that's never going to happen to me. That's never going to happen on my department, but it did twice. And it was not a very long period of time between the two. And we realized pretty quickly that we were way underprepared for, what we were witnessing and what we were seeing and how to deal with that and to protect our own guys and girls. So we, myself and there were a number of other people on the department,
right,
that, recognized we had to do something, right? So we started reaching out to other departments that had already started what's called a peer support team. And that's exactly what it is. It's a group of your own peers. Like I said earlier, they know what you're going through. They know what you've seen. They've probably dealt with the same sort of issues. A lot of the people, like I said, we're taught to suck it up, do your job, go home. Our at the end of the day, our goal is to make it back to our families. But a lot of times, unfortunately, when you go back home, they go to drinking, they go to, other drugs, they go to abusive relationships. There's not a healthy outlet for some of those feelings. But there are, we found out there are so many resources out there that can help at least, to train at peers in recognizing, suicidal tendencies, just with somebody that's struggling. And there are laws that protect us, that we can't, you come and talk to me and we establish that it's a peer support encounter. We legally can't say anything to anybody unless you tell us that's, we're covered by law with some of that stuff. So there's tons of training out there. Yeah, it's a big deal. So
the, kind of mentally, just because I've, the professional police, the professional fire, the professional EMS, you guys are on shift, but the volunteer, they're going to hop in the truck, run to the call, hop out of the truck, go home. They don't have that
right
decompress. And so and it makes me want to look up like how many of our volunteer firefighters are hitting that PTSD. I mean, because they're answering the same calls, but it's a little bit different that they're answering the same calls in a smaller town.
Sure.
I mean, it's.
But I mean, essentially, they're going to see. I mean, if they're, like I said, if they're in it for a long enough period of time, they're going to see the same things we see. Maybe not, like you said, quite as often.
Right.
But it only takes one time. You see something bad that hits home. I mean, if you have a kid that's the same age as, you know, a vehicle accident where a kid passes away, or you know, a drowning, it'll hit home hard. So it doesn't matter how long you've been in it. It doesn't matter how, you know, how big your city is or whatever.
Well, and that's the one thing that I've noticed with all of you, is that you guys are great about switching it on and off. And it is kind of what you said, is that it doesn't matter what, you know, I'm tired, whatever, I'm on call for you, so I need to turn that light switch off. It doesn't exist. I'm just here, go through the training and plug holes and, you know, move on. And I see that. I mean, we were doing an interview with several of my board members, and you know, they kept getting calls, and then they would come back, and life was normal. And that call that they could have gone to, I mean,
You
it could have
known what it was.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the one thing that I've noticed with everybody, is that they're like, the police guys, you can tell a little bit about what the call is because there's a little bit more drama to theirs. Like, you know, hey, we had to use this tool, or this guy, or, you know, this person got naked and ran down the street on us, and, you know, hey, he had to tackle.
And then they called us. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but so you can tell a little bit more on their end, but with the fire and EMS, it's you. I have no idea what calls you all took. I mean, it's definitely just that light switch. So how bad? I mean, you go home, and is there kind of rules at the house of, and again, this is personal, so is it I don't answer questions, or I have to tell you every bit, because if I don't, there's, you know, if I'm a rookie first responder and I've, you know, got somebody at home, how do I make sure that I stay healthy?
Sure. So I'll hit a couple points. So you brought up a point that I was going to bring up here eventually anyway, but any first responder, so police, fire, EMS, I'll even go to, you know, nurses, physicians in the ER. We, you know, just one of the expectations of what we do is that we can't bring our emotions into, you know, some of these patients' lives. So, you know, just imagine if I show up on, let's say, a cardiac arrest, and your family, you know, family members on the ground, you're going to be just wrecked. You know, if I show up and I start to get emotional, it's just going to make the situation worse. And I'm not saying it's not okay to get emotional, but, you know, we're very good at putting on faces.
Yeah.
So you can now see one of the biggest problems with what we deal with is that we're basically getting practice every single day on how to fake our emotions and put on a face, smile, nod, pretend like everything's okay. And at some point it becomes natural. So it is kind of hard sometimes to turn off that switch when you go back home. But I will say that, you know, you need to find out what way you can deal with what you've seen that day, deal with your emotions. Hopefully, like I said, you've got somebody that you can go home and talk to. I'm not saying go home and tell them all the gory details about everything that you ran, but you have to be able to kind of let loose of some of those emotions. And it's almost a bonding experience. It should be for, you know, your spouse or, you know, mom, dad, whatever, you know, because hopefully they're at least interested in what you do and want to hear what you have to say. But at the same time, you're getting the emotional aspect of getting it out there in the first place. And I would say that should be the time. Hopefully that's your comfort space, that you can kind of let those emotions go that you've had pent up for, you know, 24, 48, whatever hours. It's kind of therapy for me. You know, my wife kind of knows at this point, you know, like last night, I probably got 3 hours of sleep. It's, what is it? You know, almost 12:30 now. I'm probably going to be out doing reports for another 3 hours probably. But you can tell pretty quick based on how tired I am, how many questions she wants to ask me in the morning. And that's we've been together for a while, but
Sure.
you know, you might need a little, you know, I have video games that I go play at home to kind of unwind with, or, you know, whatever, to kind of get just some brainless activity that kind of lets your mind calm down a little bit. And then at that point, you know, hopefully you can go and, if you need to talk about, you know, whatever call or whatever. But
yeah. I mean, I think
it.
the one thing that surprised me, because I didn't know anything about EMS, is, you know, when they work their shift and then they go home. But with fire and EMS, you guys live at the firehouse or live at the station for, you know, the whatever the time frame is, and so your lifestyle, if you need to answer that, or they, okay.
Yeah.
But to me, it's impressive on all first responders. If you have a family, your family is a first responder, or part of that lifestyle as well. I mean, they're just as committed as you. That, I mean, Laura knows she's not going to see you for X amount of time. I mean, it's just, but same thing, holidays, vacations, all. I mean, it is a lifestyle, and I don't think that people understand that. You know, it's the same as our military families when their loved ones deployed. You know, the only difference is the deployment happens kind of a little bit more often. You know, you're at the firehouse or you're at the station, and I mean, you and I have talked for, you know, several phone calls, but little short bits as you're getting called out, and so I couldn't imagine having a spouse where, you know, that would be tough. I mean, I
Yeah.
kudos to the men and women that have their spouses out there. I mean, it really is a family event, and I think that that's one of the beautiful things that I've seen about first responders is that, I mean, it is, if you guys do any kind of barbecue, cookout, whatever, it's everybody showing up.
Yeah, everybody shows up.
Yeah. So, you know, when you had joined and started talking about joining the foundation, it was with the purpose of bringing what they had in Lawrence to the foundation, because I, you know, my goal is to take this national. We've hit several counties. I just, as we've talked, I got an email asking for tourniquets for another county. So where, you know, what do you want to see your role in the foundation? Where do you want to take it?
I mean, I would like to be, you know, involved with, I guess, on a different level. You know, what, you know, you're providing the equipment. I guess I say you, I mean the foundation, but you know, the stuff that some of these smaller departments might not have, even the bigger departments. You know, we've supplied a lot of departments with tourniquets and stuff that you know they're going to need, and different equipment. Just with how long I've been doing this, and some of the stuff that I've seen and dealt with personally, the toughest thing is, you know, like I said, when we first started, you know, it's, you know, pretty much shut up and do your job. And I guess that's kind of a blunt way to say it, but
Sure, but
you know, when you first get into it, you know, as a recruit, I wasn't told, hey, you're going to see stuff that could wreck your emotions, that could, you know, if you take this home, it could ruin your marriage. It could, you know, you're going to not see your kids for birthdays, for Christmases, for, you know, whatever. I mean,
right.
And just getting that out there, especially if it could be, you know, involved with, you know, fire EMS that are just beginning. You know, if I can go and talk to recruit classes that are just beginning in this career, and I mean, not to scare them, you know, but just to say, hey, you know, you're going to see some stuff, and it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to have these issues, because we've all had them, and, you know, here are the resources that you can use. And there's plenty of resources. I mean,
yep.
We had a therapist that worked with us, especially when it came to the peer support training. She's a therapist that only deals with first responders. And there's tons of those therapists out there. I mean, that's all she deals with, which is important for us, because even, you know, with some of my close friends, you know, they're talking about, you know, kind of business stuff and all that. I can't relate to that, and they can't relate to some of the stories that I have. You know, we can bond over other things, but, you know, it's one of those aspects about what we do that not everybody can relate to. I mean, and it's not for everybody. I mean, some people get into this field and realized pretty quick that, hey, this is not for me. And it's one of those things that you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's not much in between.
Right.
But just it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay that you feel this way. Like I said, here are these resources. Even allowing some of these smaller departments, like you said, that might not have, a ton of people, they're responding from their vehicles or whatever, but, they have a resource they can go to if they have an issue. And, we have, different, pastors locally that, kind of like the police chaplains, fire chaplains, stuff like that. But it's also nice to have somebody, a group of people that is on your department that you are comfortable talking to, and kind of helping you work through those things mentally that you might be dealing with. So.
Yeah, I mean, I just keep thinking that when the police department asked me a couple times to be on their police review boards, and I remember the very first one that they were, on several of the questions, it's very situation specific, and the officers were able to tell you the exact date, the exact intersection, the exact time on some of the most traumatic things. And as they're saying these things, they're talking about the situation. Well, there we were, door to door. So after the officer leaves, I'm having to go, hey, what's door to door? I mean, I didn't know. And that's when they're parked door to door. Okay, well, no shit, dumbass. Okay, there you go. But so as they're throwing out the lingo, I'm not a first responder, never did it. And so it's not the same level of a conversation when you're trying to empathize with you, but I have no idea what you're saying to me. I mean, it's no different than in the restaurant industry saying, hey, 86 the steak. What?
Yeah.
Right. Take it off the damn menu. That's what we're saying. But that's where I think that it's important to me to always have first responders as part of the board. I mean, so we've done, yesterday we voted to separate out the operational and the advisory. And I really would like to have it where either, I mean, just like you said, like we go to they had the blue line seminar here in Bartlesville where they were talking if you've had to take a life in the field, or if how do you cope with that. So then we take those small departments and we say, hey, I'll pay your hotel, I'll pay your gas to get you down here. Now I believe that they a lot of that was for free to the first responders, but
Sure.
That's where I think that our future definitely should be going. Of we're giving the medical kits that from that we bought, but giving the gear that they need while giving them the training. But training also includes mental health, and that's, I mean, God, we've seen more outbursts nowadays, partly because of the pandemic and the stress of it. But mental health is just not there, and we don't have the services for the John Q. civilian. We definitely don't have them for our first responders. And it's shocking how we don't have it for our military. And we've been, in combat for almost 20 years now. And so I think that that's where when you and I got started really talking about what the work that they were doing in Lawrence and the why, I mean, I can all the first responders that have shared stories of that level, I can tell you where I was sitting when they told me that story. And I didn't even see it. I wasn't there. I didn't know the person. And so I definitely think that that's an area we need to be better at. And so I'm excited to see how in the next couple of years, having you drive that bus and help us really attack mental health and mental illness. But the PTSD and how do you cope with that? Yeah, it's exciting to have you on the board and enable for us to really attack that.
I'm excited to be a part of it. I mean, it's, of course, I mean, I'll be open and honest about, my experiences with it. I mean, even if you look, it's your own life and your own past and your own experiences. If your mental health isn't where it should be, nothing else is going to be. I mean, your physical health is gonna decline. Your relationships are going to decline. I mean, if you're not taking care of yourself, and I think of your mental health is just as much, if not more important than your physical health. I mean, if you got to think, stress can wreak havoc on your body. And that's just, let's just say, you've got an interview coming up, or you've got, your first baby coming or whatever. We're dealing with that stress for 24 hours at a time.
Right.
And, there are chemicals involved with, there's stress chemicals, stress hormones that if you don't release those in some way, they're going to build up in your body, and those can start, just the stress alone can start leading to physical manifestations. You got high blood pressure. If you look at the leading cause of death for, firefighters is heart attacks and heart problems. So, there's a reason for that. It's because they go from, a dead sleep at 2 a.m, to lights flashing on, loud noises. They've got to wake up completely, put on a bunch of gear, run to the truck, and then go drag a bunch of heavy equipment around and run into a burning building.
Right.
Not just using, fire as an example, but
sure. And you've done that how many times just today? And
sure.
It is you guys are dedicating your entire lives and everything around your life to that role. And I think that's to me, that's the part that I always want to make sure that people understand when they're coming up to the Jeep and saying, "Why'd you do this?" It's because though that's a single name, there are, when we saw Kyle Davis when he passed, that was a whole community that came around and said, "Man, this dude." Even inmates were going and saying and talking about his deeds. That's the reality of first responders. it's you guys make an impact and you're dedicated to it. But that dedication comes at a risk. It's either you're all in or you're gonna not pass after that's what I've noticed is that you've got the guys like you and Justin Miller and Cody Mead and just those folks that, man, you're going to make some change in your organizations. But if you're not careful, that could really, 5 years of that, it's not sustainable.
Right. Well, and I don't like to be, I don't even want to say it, but put on a pedestal. I love what I do. Everybody that I'm around that is in first responder, we love what we do. We train, constantly on different things, especially in the medical field. There's always stuff changing in the medical field. So I'm always looking at different articles on, what new, medical equipment
sure.
we could get or, new toys to play with or whatever. But, like you said, it does have a price, but I like to think that I'm pretty good at, when I go home, when I, clock out, so we work 24-hour shifts and we go 8 to 8. I don't like to go home and, it's not my whole entire life. Like I said, I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for the world, but you have to have those other outlets to other things that you enjoy. If this job is it, which, I know some people that is, they eat, sleep, poop,
sure.
Fire, EMS, whatever. I wouldn't say that's for everybody, but I'll proudly wear my fire EMS shirts off duty. I'm proud to do that, but you've got to be able to get away from that as well and get a break and take care of yourself, like I said, mentally. But
that's what I've noticed with, especially you three, I spend a lot of time around and you three have they're side gigs, but they're not side gigs necessarily. It's more, it's avenues.
Everybody's got a mowing business or something on the side.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that's, no one wants me to do your tile. I might be able to do your mowing, but don't judge me on it. Definitely like artwork or any, I can't, man. I can't build a shelf to save my life. Well, cool. So we're hitting just about an hour. Is there anything else that for our first, inaugural broadcast, is there anything else that you want to put out there?
I first off want to say thank you for what you started and kind of what you're doing. People seem to be very receptive to, your vision of what you want it to be. I think it's very unique. I've never seen a foundation or kind of what you're doing that involves, police, fire, and EMS. fire and EMS, usually kind of go hand in hand a little bit. You start bringing police officers in that, I'll just say for me, I'm not gonna say that, but
Sure.
it hasn't been done, before in that aspect. So I think it's really cool what you're doing, and I hope that more people can become aware of what you're doing and donate in some way, and kind of keep the train rolling of what you've started. And I'll say I have the clothing that we have is super comfy. I've bought basically every shirt that you have, and so, and I don't think you've said it yet, but a lot of the clothing you have, I could tell you right now, and my wife will vouch for me too, I've got a whole closet that's dedicated to all my fire shirts and EMS shirts and everything else. She's got a few, but there's not very many clothing items out there that are strictly designed and made for spouses and friends that just want to support a family member or whatever that is in the first responder world. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, like I said, it's comfy stuff, so it's good quality material.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm very pleased. So Jared knows this, but we've used two different shirt shops here in Bartlesville, the Cunningham Graphics and Bartlesville Print Shop, and they've both have done a great job. Just trying to also help small businesses as we grow. But yeah, you're getting shirts that show your support. But the funds is how we pay for example, the technology to have this podcast has cost me, I don't know, $20 a month, something like that. So that's one shirt. One shirt helps me pay for having this and helps us grow. And then if we have, which we have, because we don't have much expenses right now, that's what I'm using to go buy tourniquets. And the kits are going to be kind of the new ones. So I am kind of curious. Have you put your hands on one of these yet?
Is that the? Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, I have all that in my little. I've got a little trauma kit that I carry in my my truck. So
we're looking to swap out. If you go on our Amazon wish list, you'll see these in the holsters, but you'll also now see these. Amazon carries these, but if I get a big donation, I can get a better price by buying in bulk. So we gave these out to Pawnee County. Copan got these, and one other location, but Ramona, no, Oshaleta Fire, the Owens Company Fire is what they're called. We gave them several of these, so this will be the next kind of. I had $1,000 donate. Actually, Judy, I'm going to be trying to get a big bulk order of these with Judy's funds. So if you're watching this, thank you,
Judy.
Yeah, thank you. Alrighty, man. So I'm gonna let you go do all your paperwork, and then I'll edit this up and get it posted on Facebook.
Cool,
man. I appreciate your time. I know that it's incredibly precious, especially with on shift and sleep and all of those things. So I appreciate.
I get paid either way. So
sure, not by me.
Yeah, right. So, I will add one thing though to the tourniquet kind of stuff that we've kind of been talking about a little bit. So I know that a lot of that stuff, is not something we're going to use every day. So a lot of the people that are, either donating or buying tourniquets or whatever, like I've used, like in 14 years, I've used 3 tourniquets. But it's kind of one of those things that doesn't happen very often, but when you need it, you need it. I mean, those can very easily say, if I'm putting a tourniquet on somebody, it's a life or death scenario. If they don't get something like that put on them quickly, we're not even going to be able to treat them and get them to the hospital before it's going to be too late. So stuff like that might seem like it might never get used. I hope it never gets used, but if they need it, they have it. Some of these smaller departments just don't have that money, and hopefully we can expand to some different equipment and after we outfit everybody with tourniquets and everything else that they need. But just kind of a side note, it might seem like a good thing to give out tourniquets, but
I don't even know how I got stuck on tourniquets. I no idea. I think it's because I asked Recon Medical, hey, could you help us with anything? And then they shipped me 100 tourniquets. I was like, okay, let's do that. I don't know, but
Divine intervention.
Yeah, that's how it's all played out. I mean, even when we got our 501c3, it was the day that we were doing the Running for Heroes partnered walk here in town for Kyle Davis. Everything is just played out. When you and I were talking, man, I don't know where you're going to fit in this, but I know you're going to fit in this. I don't know how. And it's just.
I don't care. I mean, whatever you need me to.
Yeah. So, all righty, brother. Like I said, I thank you. And make sure that you tell everyone else thank you that's over at your place. And then if you're watching this, we'll get it posted pretty quick. But the website's on the video there. We've got all the gear, and the goal is just to help save lives and spread the word about what our first responders are out there doing every day. All right, man. Any parting words?
Stay safe. Tell somebody you love them, and don't do anything stupid tonight in Bartlesville. I'd like to get some rest tonight.
All righty, brother. I'll get this posted probably about 30 minutes.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it.
Anytime. See you.
Bye, buddy.